Hey everyone, Daniel Marchano with XDA TV, and we have an exclusive first look at Android Q running on a Google Pixel 3, complete with system-wide dark mode. Let's check it out. So getting started with our hands-on of Android Q. My Pixel 3 over here is running Android Q, and I'm running Android P over here on the Pixel 2. The lock screen or the always-on display is one of the first changes that you're going to notice. Gone is the centered battery display here on the bottom of the display, and that's moved up to the right-hand corner, more where you see it when the display is lit. The same thing with active notifications. They're up here on the upper left-hand corner instead of centered where you see the screenshot notification over here. I don't understand why Google's making this change. Maybe they have some plans down here for the bottom of the always-on display, but it's a change that we noticed. Double tap to wake is still working, and we come to our lock screen, which is relatively unchanged. You've still got your notifications in the same basic positioning. Now keep in mind that this is not a Google version of this, so it doesn't have a lot of the pixel enhancements or the Google Sans font. So you'll notice the font change throughout the OS, and you'll probably be noticing Google Sans on the Pixel version once it ends up launching. So once we go ahead and unlock the device, you'll notice a few other little changes here. You can see the next button is no longer the check mark. It is more pixel themed with this blue outline, just a change there, and the clock disappears entirely once you swipe up. So we're going to go ahead and unlock these two devices. Now, like I mentioned, this is a GSI AOSP build, so it does not have Google applications, and as of yet we haven't been able to get Google applications to function properly on this, probably because it's such an early build of the OS, but we'll still be able to go through some of the changes that we notice. Starting over here, if we swipe down from the notification pane, not a whole lot has changed. You will notice that there are, the icons have changed a little bit, not too much here, but in the settings menu, you'll notice some of the icons have changed. You still have the exact same notifications here down on the bottom. If we swipe to the left here, we still have our same options for snooze and settings, but you'll notice that they've changed a little bit with the way that they work. Snooze is actually on the inside, and this notification bell will bring you the notification options for the application. Now, one thing that you used to be able to do in Android P is swipe to the left to get rid of a notification. That's actually gone here in Android Q. You can no longer swipe to the left. You have to swipe to the right to dismiss your notification. Again, just a change, I think, for change's sake. So we're going to go ahead and open the settings menu here to go through some of the other changes that we've noticed between the builds. Here on the icons, you can see that there is some change in the iconography. You'll notice that the Wi-Fi symbol is no longer that solid symbol. It now has the bars in it, and the connected devices is also slightly different. Again, you'll notice the font changes here as well. Now, there's not too much interesting that we have noticed so far in the internet and networking options or the connected devices, other than the fact that if we go into connection preferences, you'll see that Android Beam is gone. I tried bumping these two devices against each other, and it just gives you the failed sound. If you're familiar with the Android Beam failed sound, that's what you hear from the Pixel 2 when you try to do it. So it looks like that has indeed been removed from Android Q. The next thing we have here is our applications and notifications. Now, there's not a whole lot that has changed here, but there are a few little changes just in the way things are ordered and the way that they show up here. Time spent in apps, that's probably due to digital well-being, which isn't present here on this Android Q build. So again, you notice that slight change there. If we go down here, we'll go into our default applications. And you'll notice on the Pixel 3 with Q, we have a new thing called roles. Now, I'm not 100% sure what that is or what it signifies. It really just has the SMS, phone, gallery, and browser, which are all present out here. So I'm not 100% sure why that's there. It could be for debugging, or it could be for a feature that we don't yet know about. So if we go ahead and back up here, one of the bigger changes that you're going to notice in this build, we're going to skip down to it, is privacy. Google is really focusing on privacy with this build, from notifications for who's using your location, your device sensors. A lot of those things are now available to the user in a very great way. So here in privacy, we're going to go ahead and open up app permissions. We're going to go to the same screen or the equivalent screen in Android P. So you see this is very similar, just a few small changes, no lines of demarcation here. But either way, once we go into phone And we see the devices that are allowed and denied. It's much clearer here on Android Q which ones are allowed and denied and which ones aren't. Instead of these ugly check marks, you now clearly have allowed, denied. There's really no questions as to what's going on here. Now, if you open up an application, you'll see here that you just get a basic notification here, but if you go into it on Android Q, you've actually got phone access for contacts, allow or deny, and then you have some information here where the application developer can actually specify why they needed this notification in the first place. This is a great change that I think is really welcome to Android, and there are a lot of those here in Android Q, especially related to privacy and security. Now, if we go to one that has location, we'll see here now we have phone access. We're going to go back to location. And if we go into camera, you'll see here that you now have a very welcome option that isn't present in Android before, allow only while the app in use. This is ripped straight from iOS, and it's fantastic. It allows applications to not sit there and sync your data in the background when you don't want them to be accessing your location. This is great for secondary weather applications and such, where you can lock your location and you don't have to worry about it polling it when you don't want it to be polled. So that's a great option there. You'll also notice that we're going to go ahead and trigger a notification or a permission pop-up here on Android Q, and you'll notice that it's a little bit different now. It's right up in the middle of the screen, letting you know all three options. Allow once, allow only when it's in use, or you can completely deny the application. So we're going to go ahead and go to allow all the time here in Yahoo Weather. It's going to skip through this stuff and get over to the application itself. There we go. And you're going to notice the next cool change here. Right up here is this little application, this little pop-up letting you know that the location was in use by two applications and who it was being used by. So we're going to go ahead and trigger that again. We're going to open the weather, and this time I'm going to tap that. And you get a notification here, apps using your location. Now, this isn't just triggered to the application using location. You can also trigger it when you pull up the camera. If you swipe down, you'll see there's a new camera icon, and it says my camera's in use, and it'll tell me who's using my camera. This is fantastic. Not even iOS has this kind of a feature yet outside of location, but even then it's really difficult to find who's using it. Google makes it really front and center. I absolutely love this feature. So far, the things that I've noticed it works for are location, camera, and if I go up here and open up Facebook Messenger, if I hold the microphone button, you can see the little microphone icon comes up there and tells me Messenger is using my microphone. So those are some awesome enhancements. Again, in the era of privacy and wanting to know exactly who is doing what on your phone, those are some great changes that we have. Now going into location here, you can see who's recently had my location. And you can see this brand new permissions usage screen. This is definitely inspired by digital well-being. We don't know if this will be enhanced by digital well-being in any way, shape, or form once it does come to a Pixel device, but this is fantastic to have in your base AOSP Android. You've got your permissions, a span of time you can search. You can see who accesses it most often, who has the most permissions, and who is the most recent. Again, surfacing all this for the user is a fantastic thing that Google has done. So scrolling down through the settings, there's a lot of other small little changes that we noticed. The About phone has been separated from the system. And one thing that I did notice here, and this is probably not going to come very welcome to a lot of us who don't like Android P's gestures. The gestures are exactly the same. And it does look like you can't change that here. The option is no longer available in gestures. Whether or not it's something we will be able to trigger with ADB, we don't know. But it looks like the option to turn off swipe up for home is gone in Android Q. So it looks like Google is moving towards making this a permanent situation. So we can see in the ambient display and the lock screen display, this is displayed very similarly, but just in a different menu. We didn't notice a whole lot of changes here from what we've got on Android P, just the way that it's phrased. Again, some of that will change with the Pixel because they like to have their branding. So one of the biggest features of Android Q is the dark mode. So if we go in here, dark mode, always off, always on, and automatic based on time of day. If we go ahead and switch it to always on, we now have a true dark mode here available in the settings menu. Now this persists throughout all applications that support it. So as more applications add flags, like we've seen some of Google's applications do, we will start getting dark mode that will allow it to go by time of day throughout the operating system. This is a very welcome feature. You don't have to use any third-party applications anymore to trigger this. I really hope that this stays. We've seen something similar to this before in beta builds, so let's just keep it in mind that anything can change with any of the builds, and this still hasn't even been officially released yet. So who knows? We certainly do hope it stays here. We think Apple's doing this, so it's a good thing that we'll see Google doing it as well. Now, it is important to notice this is a dark mode, not a black mode. You can see the difference down here in the bottom between the control bar and the settings menu. So it's just dark, not, entirely black. So this is a very early build of Android Q, but it does work on the phone, and it's not something that I would recommend anybody using for any length of time. It's got a lot of broken features, and again, we can't even get Google Play services or the Play Store to install on the device, and a lot of applications now depend on that to be installed. This update, I think Google's being very clear with this. This is a privacy-focused update, and this is fantastic for those who worry about Android's privacy. Now, whether this is going to trickle down to third-party, OEMs like Samsung or Huawei or Xiaomi or LG or OnePlus, we don't know exactly how much is going to trickle down, but we really hope they make use of these features that Google is baking into the operating system. So I hope you have enjoyed your first look at Android Q on the Pixel 3, and if you had any question whether this was actually Android Q, we're going to go down here to About, and there we've got Android Q version right there. So we hope you've enjoyed this first look. We will have more looks as we get more information and more builds that we can test on our devices, and we'll bring them all to you here through XDA TV and XDAdevelopers.com. Thanks so much for checking out this video. If you found it enjoyable, be sure to leave a thumbs up and subscribe and turn on the notification bell to get notified of every single video we put out here at XDA TV. Also be sure to follow XDAdevelopers.com as we look deep into this build of Android Q and release new information that we're able to find. You can follow my personal channel, youtube.com/Daniel Marchena, or follow me on Twitter at Ultimax98. Both of those will be linked in the description. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time.